Here's a small quote I'd like to share with you. Design is not just what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. Steve Jobs. Yet as soon as a man gives thought to his homelessness, it is a misery no longer. Rightly considered and kept well in mind, it is the sole summons that calls mortals into their dwelling. Dwelling is the aim of each individual after realizing that they're born homeless. Therefore, humans tend to use their abilities and the earth as a tool to create themselves a sense of dwelling. Heidegger claims that humans build in order to dwell. Dwell is a process that is learned, and it evolves as our ideas evolve. And in order for us to dwell correctly, according to Heidegger, we must always take into consideration the fourfold he presented. The fourfold is the unity of sky, earth, divinity, and mortals. Heidegger emphasizes on the idea that mortals must dwell through caring about their surroundings and not by destroying or imitating them. This is my final Rig 4 model. It embodies my quote since it has a plane move into a volume. This presents the notion of dwelling, where this plane moved into a volume, which acts as its shelter in order to dwell. Here are the minimalistic study models of the Rig 4 model. They are the early stages of how the Rig 4 model evolved, as I showed you previously. This is the second attempt to create the Rig 4 model. Similarly, it reinforces the notion of dwelling. In the picture to the left is a rendered drawing of the second stage Rig 4 model. Once I was done with my Rig 4 model, I was further trying to experiment with it. I decided to make it more interesting by adding another station, which is the brown cylinder, and that was inspired by one of the transit stations out there. Here I present the final rig and model. This kinetic model is inspired by the pendulum, which represents the passing of time, and the passing of each second in specific. Since the project revolves around Beirut port, the pendulum reminded me of the ticking of the clock that stopped ticking at 6:07 p.m., the instant in which Beirut's worst living nightmare took place, the Beirut explosion. Unlike my Rig 4 model, the Rig N model further enhances the idea of an existential being residing inside a volume, in order to dwell. Except that this time, it is not a plane, it's a volume that is dwelling inside another one. Here are some close-up photos of my Rig N model portraying the cast shadows and a closer look at the mechanism. This is the first step study model that gave me the initial idea of having two volumes dwell inside each other. Here is a conceptual drawing of a close-up photo taken from my Rig N initial study model. It is rendered using graphite pencils. On August 4th of 2020, a large amount of ammonium nitrate stored in the Beirut port exploded, causing at least 207 deaths, 7,500 injuries, and an estimated of 300,000 people without a home. It is said that the grain silos absorbed most of the blast's power, which drastically reduced the potential damage on the city. Some experts say that if it wasn't for the silos, the damage could have been much worse. Therefore, the remains preserve and care for the site. They preserved the city from full collapse, and now they carry the memory of the loss. According to Britannica Encyclopedia, folly, from the French folie foolishness, also called eye-catcher in architecture, a costly, generally non-functional building that was erected to enhance a natural landscape. A lookout. As you can see, here are more photos of the damaged silos. Many people have been talking about the fate of the grain silos. Should they be kept? Should they be demolished? Although, some people argue that these silos are severely affected and can collapse at any second. It is absolutely vital to keep them in the site as a grim memorial. A memorial that would make us, the Lebanese people, never forget and never forgive for this inhumane crime. Time slips from life like sand slips from hands. You've probably heard about this quote before. The element of sand symbolizes money and the passing of time, literally and metaphorically, as you can see in the top left corner, where you can see the sand timer in the painting. Both poetically represent the quick passage of time, the ticking of a clock. And as we all know, the clock has a steady tempo that is identical to the ticking of a pendulum. And this is exactly how we can relate the element of sand to the ticking of the clock and the passage of time, to my model and to the Beirut port. I chose the concretion element and the inside tube being the container crane. With its up and down motion, the container crane lifts and displaces items from one place to another. They tend to have a fixed motion similar to that of a pendulum. And this is how I can relate the container crane to my model. And now I'm going to show you how I can trigger the mechanical aspect of my rig and model. So this little cylinder here, I just twist it a little bit and it'll keep on moving back and forth in the same way after I let go of it. I'll show you how it looks like from different points of view.